I did it. I finally played X Dive, though the offline version. It came out last week, so I might be a little late, but hey. It's been a bit since I did something X related, and I've been kinda looking forward to it, so why not talk about it? I hear they got rid of the gacha mechanics, which was the big deal breaker for me, so you could say this is exactly what I've been waiting for. I'm Wes, the Explosion, and here are my first impressions for Mega Man X Dive. Offline. So the game starts you off with the tutorial, basic enough, though this one's equal parts helpful and annoying. Normally, when I play a Mega Man game, I don't just assume I have things like a crouch and double jump, so hey, it's nice to be told. With your navigator, or system admin, Rico, stopping you every few feet with colorful commentary accompanying explanations that could really just be a text box flashing in the foreground for a screen, it's a chore to get through. She even had the nerve to tell me about wall kicks twice. Still though, they only do it for the first stage and then a few times in the first world after that, and then you don't really get explanations anymore. Which is kind of rough, since there's a lot of things I still don't understand, but at least for the basic stuff, you're covered. As for how it controls, it doesn't feel quite as smooth as the next game, but it's close enough. You can dash, double jump, or air jump, but only one of those before touching the surface again. You can equip up to 2 weapons at once. You automatically lock on when using a projectile weapon, which is another blessing and a curse. There's been times when I've just let the lock-on do all the hard work and concentrate on movements like dodging and platforming, but at the same time, there's also points where targeting priority just doesn't match up with what I want to do, and I'll be stuck attacking an enemy that isn't a threat instead of what I really want dead. There's also a limited amount of ammo before you need to reload. Don't use your gun for several seconds and it'll go back to full, though it's an all or nothing prospect. This screwed with me for a while, me questioning it every time I stopped shooting. You can also use swords, which you swing around on the ground for a combo or use in the air and spin to win. These tend to be pretty fast, don't need ammo, and can give your buster a break. You swap between weapons by pressing a button, though I constantly have to ask. Rather than have an attack button and a swap button, why not just have one be the primary weapon and the other the secondary, rather than add in an extra step? Still, it ain't the worst in the world, and I like being able to have a ranged and melee weapon available. Each character seems to play largely the same, due to sharing the same movement and weapon options. Each has passive abilities you can unlock and 2 special moves from what I can tell that makes it a bit more than a simple sprite change. Their icons also have different colored backgrounds, so I imagine there's some sort of class system that I haven't figured out going on as well. As for the specials themselves, they have limited uses before needing to be recharged like the projectile weapons. It's enough that you're not able to spam them, but they still recover fast enough that they're not worth saving. While I wish the characters had more differences in how they played, from their weapons and movement options, the basic template is fun enough that I'm not upset, just a little disappointed. But hey, the game has over 100 characters, so it's understandable. A few other gameplay notes: spikes don't seem to be insta-kills, they just take a chunk of your health, and there's no collision damage unless the enemy's whole thing is running into you. Think bone bats and spike wheels. Some attacks and abilities can buff, debuff, or cause status ailments like slow. And a piece of advice: remap your controls immediately. I streamed my first play session and didn't want to stop and force people to just watch me meticulously choose my setup, so I spent about 3 hours learning the dumb layout that came standard, then spent about another 3 hours on my own unlearning it. Whatever you change your jump to will be the confirm button for the menus going forward, FYI. And while I haven't been able to find the option, I read a Steam review in passing that said you should swap to precise jump. Really would like to be able to short hop, so any advice there would be welcome. From what I can tell, there are 23 worlds, each with 6 stages. The 3rd typically ends with a sub-boss and the 6th is just a boss. Each stage has 3 stars you can claim based on your performance, 1 for just clearing the level, 1 for doing it under 5 minutes, and another for ending with at least 30% of your health. Getting enough will net you bonuses. The stages are all based on past ones, largely from the X series, but I've also gotten a few ZX. As for the levels themselves, they're all pretty basic. It's mostly just very simple platforming. There's a part of me that wants to say that they have no stage gimmicks, but that's not exactly true, though all of them seem to be from the stages they're pulling from. Stuff like the roller platforms from Armored Armadillo's stage and the fireballs from Magma Dragoons. Some have even been removed, like the wind effects from Advent Sky Gardens, though I hated that, so I guess it's a plus. If you spend some extra effort looking around, there are a few secrets you can find. There are these things that respawn each time you try a level called Deep Elements that I think are used to craft armor that I've taken to calling the Forbidden Chicken Nuggets since I'm not 100% that that's what they do. These tend to be not too well hidden, and if you go out of your way too much to try and find them, you're more likely to come across an alternate path or just a dead end, so while it's worth keeping an eye out, you probably shouldn't strain yourself too much. There are also several sections where the screen locks in place and you need to defeat several waves of enemies to advance. It's not the best optimized, sometimes it taking a bit before the next set of baddies spawn in, or them going off screen and you either needing them to walk back into sight or just self-destruct. Still though, there's a lot of sections taken straight from the games, including one added before Magma Dragoon's boss fight that lets you take some ride armor in, and there's a ton of enemy variety pulling from all the games, including Command Mission, so it appeals to nostalgia. The game even does the X4 thing, where if you leave an area and there's still some enemies on screen, they'll self-destruct from shame. Really like it when they do that. I've been finding the menus and currencies a bit overwhelming. Some characters you unlock in the story, some you get from the bonuses from clearing stages well, and others you buy from the shop using either Zenny or these rainbow chip things. You can get extra character unlock items to increase their rank, which lets you upgrade their skills and how much they can equip, and you can level up your profile to increase your basic stats. You can power up your weapons, equipable cards, build stronger armors, pretty much anything you can think of, and while there are 35 Steam achievements, there's a ton more in-game ones to get you extra material. It's a mess to navigate, and while streaming, both my chat and I were constantly mentioning how confusing all the systems were. I've been slowly picking it up. Being a casual Disgaea enjoyer probably helps a lot, but there's still a ton I don't understand. All of that kind of leads into difficulty. I'm only about halfway through the main story, so this could change, but for basic gameplay, it seems really easy. With how simple the level layouts are, it doesn't take a high degree of skill to get through them, and with no collision damage, you can just rush through most of the levels. Getting a full 3 stars doesn't take a lot of effort either. That's not to say that the game can't be hard, it's just in a way you wouldn't typically expect. Each stage has a recommended power level. It's more of a suggestion than a rule though, and you can still challenge a stage even if you're significantly weaker than what it's calling for. If you do though, you'll be doing less damage while taking more. How do you increase your power? Well, you can level up, rank up a character or weapon, get bonuses for filling out a gallery, really anything. Heck, I think you even get some bonus power for strengthening stuff that you're not currently using. While it feels unintuitive at first, and it still mostly stays that way, at the same time, since just about everything seems to make you stronger, that means you're constantly progressing, even when it seems like you're messing around with unimportant stuff. The first time you clear a stage, you get bonus XP and resources, so you grow much more quickly by progressing than grinding. How easy is it to keep pace though? Well, at first, for the first and second worlds, I was either appropriately strong or at least close. After that, the gap started widening and I needed to start messing with random stuff to catch up. At this point, I'm normally significantly underpowered, about 2/3 or 3/4 of what I'm supposed to be, but sometimes I'll manage to creep up above the suggested MSRP just by screwing around. I can manage to still clear most stages despite that, the only real problem tending to be the bosses. I even struggled against Chill Penguin when I got to him, because despite him still being pretty easy to dance circles around, when he can kill you in 5 hits while you need to hit him with a constant stream of fire for several minutes, it is a bit of a challenge. Because any game can be hard when the enemies are damaged sponges.
Hey, you talking about me?
No, Mega Man and Bass, I'm not talking about you. I might be talking about him. The opposite is also true though, and if you power up too much, the levels will become too easy to the point that you won't lose unless you actively try to SD. Luckily, there is an extra challenge mode. This lets you replay a stage with the enemies slightly remixed. There's no recommended power level, so I think it's balanced to your stats, though some passive abilities on you or your weapons still seem to help. They give no rewards when you beat them, but if you get enough stars, same as the regular levels, you'll get bonuses. It's nice that there's a way to still play the stages without worrying about powering up trivializing them. I think the game looks nice. Better than some of the blocky early 3D ones without trying too hard for realism, which I don't think would suit the series too well. I've been impressed several times by some of the details on the 3D models that were just pixels before, like the metallic sheen on the X2 intro boss, or just how much Mao the Giant looks like the Zeong from Gundam. The music is good because it just seems to be pulling from other Mega Man games, typically whatever the latest version of a track is. What I mean is, X4 stages use X4 music, but X1's uses Maverick Hunter remixes. While there's a few that I can't quite place, like the version of In the Wind from Advent, I'm probably either forgetting or just missed an update somewhere. It's a little disappointing that we don't seem to be getting anything new, though I do think I saw some trailers showing some J-pop that I'll have to look out for while streaming. At the same time though, if they had to pull music from anywhere, Mega Man's probably one of the best places to do so, especially X. So X Dive used to be a mobile game, which we briefly touched on. While I've never played X Dive online and have only briefly heard other people talk about it, seeing what we got with offline, I can kind of imagine how things went. From just the gameplay perspective, I can understand why the levels are so basic and the combat so easy. All that would need to fit on a phone screen, which would be really limiting. More than that though, I look at all the different materials and currencies and am kind of horrified by what I figure it was like trying to unlock anything in the base game. I'm already confused at what some of these things do, and just imagining sitting there with my phone, trying to figure out what I can grind for in-game, what I'd need to buy, and probably most notably, what I could grind for months, or just pay to unlock in 5 minutes. I've heard others say that it's pretty much impossible to make any progress without shelling out. While I complain a lot about how confusing the different menus are and trying to figure out what does what, I imagine it was so much worse in the original experience, which is why I stayed away from it. Online use gacha to unlock characters, while here you can grind for most, and some you can't buy until later in game, thus balancing things rather than just relying on luck to get a busted character. I really don't like games of chance, the gambling bits being the parts of Dragon Quest I hate most. I prefer calculated risk, putting my time and resources into something like, say, a YouTube channel that might possibly be something someday, as opposed to rolling up to a casino with my life savings expecting to retire. While I've seen a few complain about how Capcom turned a free-to-play game into a $30 title, I personally will take that flat fee over a title that's free, but I need to invest a ton of money and time into in order to make any sort of progress, with no upper limit. Despite Mega Man being my favorite thing ever, hearing about X Dive's monetization systems made me steer clear. I expected one day I'd break down, give it a try, and then drop it in disgust in under 2 hours, but with them taking the worst of the free-to-play bullcrap out, while I still have complaints, I am addicted. So I guess it still manages to get my time investment. But what have I been working on in-game specifically? Well, I waited to play it until I was ready to stream, so I sat on it for about a week. My first play session was around 3 hours. I struggled a lot since there's a ton of stuff I didn't understand, some of it pretty vital, but as soon as I figured out the shop, I unlocked Iris, and that was who I used for the rest of the stream. Since then, I fully built up her, Mega Man 00, and Harpuya, and am working on powering up Iris Another. I've been focusing on strengthening the Light Buster, or Military Grade Buster, for my gun since I love the first armor, and a Muramasa for my sword because I'm edgy. Would trade it for a Z-Saber though. While I'm not sure what the meta is, I figure maxing out a few characters and weapons will make it easier to grind up other stuff once I've got a better handle on things. And while a tier list I looked at that goes from D up to SS said that Iris was only a B, she can heal. Plus she's adorable, so I'll stick with her until I get one of her alts. I've been playing it off and on while getting the script together and am now at 13.4 hours in, with 13 out of 35 achievements achieved. The plan going forward is to stream all the story bits and maybe some extra stuff if there's demand, though I'll be grinding in between so I don't hit a wall. Well, at least not too often. And speaking of streaming, I'll be taking character suggestions if anyone wants to stop in or just leave a comment. So that's the gist of it. Some of it might have sounded like a review, but believe me, there's so much that I still don't understand, that I might have gotten wrong, that I still need to do, that it shouldn't be taken as one. Might attempt a full review sometime down the line, but I don't feel entirely confident in my ability to do so. If I do, though, I might end up repeating some stuff if my perspective doesn't change, so please be nice and pretend it's the first time you've heard any of this. But in more pressing matters, what do I think of X-Dive Offline? It seems like I enjoy it, but would others? Well, it kinda depends on what you're looking for from it. Do you love the Mega Man franchise, are looking for something to scratch that itch and feed your sense of nostalgia? Did you like X8 and the need to grind in that game, along with its extra characters adding replay value? Then yes, this game is probably for you. Are you looking for tight gameplay, creative level design, and want a low commitment game that you can just knock out in an afternoon, whenever you can find a few spare hours? Then no, avoid this one like the plague. X-Dive is a game that I feel like I could criticize just as much as I could praise. It doesn't do anything impressive, but how much it does is. The stages and gameplay are basic, but there's so many direct nods to what came before that I'm often tickled when an old enemy character or stage sequence pops up. The OST's largely recycled, but the songs still sound great. I wish there was an English dub, but the Japanese voice acting does sound good, even if I don't understand most of it. The grinding can be annoying, but it also gives me an excuse to play it into the ground. Unlike X5 though, where I think I kind of like it, but am not 100%, I can say for sure that I am enjoying what I've played so far with X-Dive. And hey, I'm wrapping up my Battle Network reviews, so this gives me something else to make videos on. You people like X, right? Anything you want to see, let me know and I'll take it under advisement. For right now though, thanks for watching and maybe consider subscribing if you're into Mega Man. For everlasting peace.